Hello, good morning everybody, and welcome to the second of CSW Group's Inspiring Futures series of webinars. So we're delivering these in conjunction with the Careers and Enterprise Company. We're running them all week, and each session will deal with a different aspect of career thinking, employability, and lots of other topics related to that. So today I'm pleased to introduce you to my colleague, career development consultant Karen Crosby, who will be doing a talk on getting ready for the world of work. So as we are talking, if any of you have any questions that you'd like to ask, please pop them in the Q&A box, and we'll do our very best to deal with those at the end. There will be an email link for questions that I will share with you right at the end too, if we don't have time to deal with everything. So without further ado, I will hand you over to Karen.
Thank you, Ollie. As Ollie said, today we're going to briefly discuss about applying for a job and what to expect from the application and the interview process. The aims of the presentation is where to look for employment vacancies, how to complete an application form and CV, and then briefly look at how to prepare for different types of interview. And there's a session tomorrow on interview skills at 11:30, which will cover interviews in more detail. But before we start today, I just wondered how confident people feel about looking for and applying for a job. So if you're logged on online today, there should be a poll that's come up on your screen now that says that you're not confident at all, that you're a little bit confident, that you're not sure, you're fairly confident, or you're very confident. So if you've got a second or two now, if you could just click on that, and then at the end of the session, we can have a look again and see whether you feel that you've increased your knowledge. Okay, so it's looked like we've got a little bit of a mixed bag. So some fairly confident, and we've got some students who are a little bit confident, and some are just not quite sure, and that's fine. So what we'll do, we'll go on with the session and then have a look at the end, and hopefully we'll see that you may have learned something more. So when you're ready to start searching for a job, how do you go about that, and where do you look? Well, the best ways to start searching for a job is by doing lots of research, and that doesn't involve just researching different jobs, but also starts researching yourself and thinking about you, because this is your job, this is your career. So what do you want from that? What are your talents? What are your skills? What do you like doing? What do you don't like doing? So it's all about thinking about what would be your ideal job. Do you want to work indoors? Do you want to work with people? Do you want to work with animals? Do you like sitting at a desk, or do you prefer working with your hands? So it's all about researching and thinking about you and what you want from a job. And it'll be a lot easier once you've narrowed down your focus and once you've set yourself clear goals. So when you start to look for a job, there are lots of great places to search, and there's lots of resources that are out there to help you. And social media is actually a great place, and it gets your name out there, and it helps you to make contacts and extend your networking circle. And it's a great place to search for jobs as well, because employers often advertise vacancies on sites such as Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So it's a great idea to start following the companies that you're interested in working for. Like their tweets, share their posts, because that gets your name out there and it might get you recognised. And again, set up reminders so that you can check whether or not they've got any vacancies. I'm going to be running a session about using social media effectively on Wednesday. But it's thought that this year, 89% of companies will use social media for recruiting, and that last year over 14 million people used social media to find a new job. So other places that you can look are newspapers, and because even though many companies post vacancies online, smaller and local companies still advertise in newspapers, local magazines. And also, if you know that you want to work in a specific industry, you can look for a journal in that field, as it might feature some job ads. There are also recruitment agencies, which are professional bodies, and they know the local job search area, so they can help streamline your search, and then they can send your CV out to prospective employers as well. And a great place to find a job if you want to work in a smaller local company is what we call by going door to door. And this is where you take your CV into the business that you're interested in, you introduce yourself and ask the employer if they've got any vacancies. And if not, ask if they'll keep your information on file. And it's worth calling back into these businesses periodically just to show that you're interested and that you're enthusiastic and just to keep your name there. But if you don't feel comfortable going into a business at the current climate, then you can always make a list of the companies you're interested in and email them, expressing an interest in any vacancies or work experience, and send them a copy of your CV. And one of the best places to start finding jobs is through family and friends. And then former co-workers, so if you've had a voluntary job or a Saturday job or done work experience, because they can tell you if there are any vacancies in their company, they can recommend you to their employer, or they can maybe ask if you can do some work shadowing, some work experience or some voluntary work. So it's always worth keeping in contact with family and friends that work in the industries that you're interested in. And then again, there are some great job search websites where employers post their vacancies. And these websites are specifically designed for this purpose. Things such as the National Apprenticeship Service, Indeed, Monster. And they also let you post your CV so that a potential employer can find you. But just be careful about putting your personal details into the public domain. Make sure that you follow instructions on your privacy settings carefully. And there's a list of some of these websites at the end of this session. And then one of the best ways, or what a really great way to get into employment, is by doing work experience in your chosen field, because this helps you build contacts and it helps you to show an employer that you're hardworking, that you're dedicated, and it enhances your skills. And even if that employer can't then offer you a paid employment, they may be able to recommend you to one of their friends or a fellow business owner, or if not, they'll be able to act as a referee for you, so that when you do apply for jobs, you can show that you've had real experience. So once you've found a job that you're interested in, you'll most likely be asked to fill out an application form. Now, this is an official document which a potential employer will require candidates to complete. And it consists mainly of 4 sections. So you've got your personal information, education, your employment history or your work experience, and your activities and interests. And the application form helps employers to compare candidates more easily, and it helps them to shortlist those that they feel are going to be the best fit for their business. Most application forms are now completed and submitted online, but some smaller local companies may still require you to fill in a hard copy and post it off to them or take it in. So an application form is likely to be your first chance to make an impression on an employer, and it can be the difference between being rejected or selected for interview. So your application should grab the attention of the employer and leave them wanting to find out more. Research the company and prepare answers which are thoughtful and tailored to the specific role for which you're applying. And this will show the employer that you're interested in the job that they've advertised and that you're interested in working for their business. And it's important that you complete each section thoroughly. So when you're completing your personal information, make sure that you add an email address and that it's a professional looking email address. List the names and addresses of any schools or colleges you've attended, and list your academic grades that you've achieved or those which you're working towards, such as your GCSEs or your A-levels, and your predicted grades if you know them. Add any employment history, any work experience, voluntary work or part-time jobs. And then include any relevant skills. Make sure that you add skills such as speaking a second language, sporting or music achievements, and any activities or interests you have if you feel that they're relevant to the job for which you're applying. If you're applying for a job in construction and you like to spend your weekend building things, then that's great. Make sure that you include that there. You may also be asked to complete a personal statement, either on the application form or within a covering letter. So your personal statement could be covering things such as what originally attracted you to the job, how your qualifications and competencies are relevant, if you're willing to upgrade your skills or qualifications, and how your personality would make you a good fit for the company culture. So this is your chance to sell yourself. It's your chance to match your skills and competencies to what the employer is looking for. Let your employer know if you've met employees of the company through work experience or careers fairs, or you've got relatives or friends that work there, and talk about the positive impression that these meetings gave of the company. And you can also talk about the research that you've done, how you like the company structure, the training or the culture and the values, and how they match your own. You may also be asked a competency question on your application form, if not on the application process, but you will most likely be asked these in any interviews. And these form part of the application process as a whole, and they can be things such as describe a situation in the past when you've worked as a team, or describe a time when changes in your life meant you had to do something new or different. And employees ask these questions to help them imagine how you would operate in their workplace and how you would work with their existing staff. So it's worth, before you complete your application form or before you go into an interview, having some ideas and some scenarios in mind that you can speak about. So remember that employers will spot generic answers. So don't copy from form to form. An employer will want to see thoughtful, considered answers that are tailored to the job that they've advertised. Make sure that you gather all the information that you need, such as your academic achievements, your work experience, and the dates of that. Study the job description closely so you understand the skills and qualities that the employer is looking for, and make sure that you come back to these as you fill in the form. And read the instructions carefully. How does the employer want the form filled in and submitted? Do they want any supporting evidence sent in? And when is the deadline? So make sure that you don't go right up to the deadline. Try to get your form in a little bit earlier. If you're completing an application form manually in pen, check whether the employer stipulates, do you need a black pen or a blue pen? And the application form is your chance to sell yourself. So don't be afraid to shout out about your achievements. So if you've got high grades or you've won an award, you can include that there. And make sure that you research the company you're applying for. What are their aims and objectives? And always remember that before you send off any form, that you double check your spelling and your grammar. So a little earlier, I mentioned sending your CV to an employer or taking it in, but what is a CV? So a CV is a written overview of your skills, education, and work experience. And it's useful to send to a prospective employer when you're looking for a job or voluntary work. So a CV should contain your personal details, your name, address, and a professional looking email address and phone number. A short personal profile, 2 to 3 sentences long, and listing your relevant key skills. So things such as, if you're applying for a job within construction, have you got a CSCS card? Have you got a knowledge of health and safety, customer services, or things like first aid certificates, food hygiene, List any work experience, and then your education and your qualifications, and again any grades that you're working towards and your predicted grades. Any hobbies or interests if you feel that they're relevant and they may help you get the job. And this is your chance to put down the name of 2 people who would be willing to act as a referee for you. It shouldn't be a relation, but it can be somebody from a club or a society that you attend, any part-time job or voluntary work, or a teacher or tutor at school. So your CV needs to be simple, 2 pages of clear white A4 paper, a professional font, and present things in a logical order, and use sufficient spacings and clear section headings. And make sure that you tailor your CV for every job that you're applying for, and that you emphasize the skills that are mentioned in the job description. You can use bullet points, as these are a great way to draw attention to any key facts or relevant information, and it allows the employer to find your significant achievements quickly. Again, make sure that you include your contact details, keeping your email address professional. And again, make sure that you double check any spelling or grammar before you send that CV to an employer. And if necessary, ask somebody to check that for you. So don't be afraid of white space. Even if you think your CV looks quite bare, as long as you've included all of the relevant information and achievements, you don't need to worry, because sometimes less is more. So don't try to include too much. A CV should be a checklist of your achievements. So ask yourself, will this information help me get the role I'm interested in? Don't forget that if you're emailing or posting your CV, just to include a cover letter with which job you're applying for or which work experience placement, and a little bit about why. And don't try to make the font too large or too small to fit or make your CV seem longer. Font size 11 or 12 is fine. And keep it to black font. Don't use coloured font or crazy fonts. And you don't need to include your age, your gender, or a photo on your CV unless you're specifically asked to do so. And don't forget that if you're emailing your CV to an employer, save your CV in your own name before you send it. That way, if an employer saves that CV, he knows instantly that it's your CV without having to search through the document. And always be truthful. An employer will refer to your CV and application form in an interview. So make sure that you know the information that you've given and that you're able to speak about it. After all that hard work, you've secured an interview, but what can you expect? So an employer uses, amongst other methods to interview, things such as a telephone interview, an online interview, a group interview, or a face-to-face. Tomorrow there'll be a session on interview skills in more detail, but we're just going to touch on them now. So if you're offered a telephone interview, make sure that you set a calendar reminder in your phone and that you're prepared for at least 15 minutes early. And pick your venue, making sure that you're not going to be distracted, that there's no television or radio playing in the background and nobody's going to be walking in and out of the room. If possible, use a landline telephone, but if you only have a mobile, just make sure that your battery's charged to full and that you're in an area where you've got a good signal strength. Have a drink of water nearby in case you get a dry mouth or a cough, and make sure that you've done your research and your homework on the company. Make sure that you've got all of your documents and notes with you so that you can refer to them in the interview. And although your interviewer can't see you, if you're smiling and sitting up straight, that will shine through on the phone. And you can speak clearly and slowly. And if you're unsure of a question, ask the interviewer to repeat it, or ask if you can refer back to that at the end. But how things have changed over the last year, it's become important that we've needed to use online, and a lot of employers now are interviewing prospective candidates online. So I'm going to show a video now of how to prepare for an online interview should your prospective employer choose this as their chosen method.
Video interviews are becoming more popular with employers as the next step in the recruitment process once you've been shortlisted. Some employers prefer live interviews via services such as Skype, while others prefer you to record an online video questionnaire. Employers can then watch it at a time that suits them. So, here are our tips for video interview success. Follow the employer's instructions carefully and get in touch with them if you don't understand anything. Don't leave it to the last minute. Make sure you know how to use the equipment and that it is set up beforehand. If you're using your own equipment, try it out with friends or family. If you're using equipment at the organisation's office, arrive in plenty of time so you know how to use it. You need to feel confident and calm before you start. Put a sign on your door if you're at home to make sure you're not going to be disturbed, and turn off your phone. Adjust the camera so that it's focused on you and the microphone is close by. Clean and tidy the table in front of you. Don't sit with your back to a window and make sure that the wall behind you is plain. You don't want to distract the interviewer with a ticking clock, or if you're at home, with washing or the radio or a television that's on. Dress as you would for any other interview. Watch our What to Wear at interview if you're unsure. Avoid dazzling the camera by wearing brilliant white or bright colours, small stripes or busy patterns. Go for solid, plain colours. The microphone will pick up all the noise in the room, so don't fidget or tap your pen. Look straight into the camera, make eye contact and smile. It's useful to switch on the picture-to-picture feature so you can see how you come across, but try not to look at it too often, as you will appear to be looking down or to the side. Interviews are always nerve-wracking, but if you can adapt to the situation, it will reflect well on you. Try to be natural and don't be afraid of the technology.
So as things are starting to open up and businesses are going back into the offices and the workplaces, it could be that they start now asking you to attend for an in-person interview. And sometimes this would be on your own, and another time it could be within a group. So a group interview is where there will be a group of other young people, such as yourself, who are all applying for the same job. If you're invited to attend, make sure that you arrive a little early, that you're dressed smartly and you're there following the protocols that are currently in place. Make sure that you use positive body language, that you smile and you're open. And you may be asked what's called an icebreaker question. It could be, tell us a little bit about yourself. So have some examples in mind that you may use. And remember to include everybody in any task that you're given to do and communicate with others effectively, being an active listener. But don't be something that you're not, or try to talk over people. Try not to get lost in the group. And remember that you're being assessed all the time that you're there, from the moment that you walk into the building. So don't get tempted to become informal or over friendly, and try not to lose your focus or your concentration. And that's the same as if you're invited for just a one-to-one interview. Again, make sure that you arrive in plenty of time, dressed smartly, and that you follow any protocols that are in place. And that the moment you walk in the building, you will be on interview, because any of the staff that you come across could be on your interview panel. So make sure that you're polite and do your research on the company. Use positive body language and speak slowly and clearly. And if you're unsure of any questions that you've been asked, it's okay to ask the interview panel to repeat a question, or if you can go back to that at the end. Prepare questions that you'd like to ask the interviewers from the research that you've done on the company. And at the end of the interview, always remember to thank your interviewer. So I'm going to ask now the question that I asked at the beginning. So I'm going to ask, how confident now do you feel about looking for and applying for a job now? So some students feel more confident now, and that's really good news. But if you've got any questions at all, it's worth asking your careers advisor, your tutors, your teachers, and this session will be run again this afternoon. And then there are other sessions throughout the week as well, which will all build towards your future and employability skills. So I'm just going to ask now, I think we've got a couple of questions. So I'm going to hand over to Oliver to see if we've got any more questions that have come in. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Karen. It was a really, really good presentation. So we've got a quick question from Karen, a teacher from Oakwood Court College. She's asking if the presentations will be available. Yes, they will, Karen. All of them are being recorded and they will be added to the CSW Group YouTube channel. If anybody wants the PowerPoint slides, I'm going to share our career question email address in a minute. Just send the request to there and we'll be happy to send those across to you. And just a quick question here from Georgia. If I apply for courses to deal with animal care, do I need to pay for it? And also she mentions she has special needs.
Hi, Georgia. So, excuse me, if you're applying for an animal care course, excuse me, through Bicton College, no, you don't need to apply for that. And if you've got SEN needs, that's something that your advisor can help you with, and that they can then liaise with your school and your college to put any support in place that you're going to need moving forward. So if you'd like to email in at the end of the presentation to the email address that Ollie gives you, I can make sure that the advisor that's linked to your school is in contact with you, Georgia, to support that transition.
That's great. Thank you very much. A question from Donna. So Donna is with a class of 5 Year 11s and they've been watching the webinar. And the question is it okay to use dyslexia-friendly fonts on CVs?
Yes, it is. So if you do have dyslexia, it's perfectly fine to use a dyslexia-friendly font. And obviously when you are completing your CV and you're doing your personal statement, you can include a little bit about that in there as well.
That's brilliant. And the last one here is from Emma, who's asking how long the application and interview process can tend to be.
Hi, Emma. It all depends on the employer. So when you find a job that you're interested in, there'll be a deadline for the applications. So if you make sure that you get your application in for that deadline. When that deadline closes, the employer then will start going through all of the applications that they've had in, and they'll do what's called a shortlisting. So they'll look at the application forms and they'll decide which applicants they'd like to interview, and will then invite them for an interview. Obviously, it can take probably 2, 3, 4 weeks. It all depends on the company and how many applications they get in and how many roles that they've got, but they should let you know either way. So if you send an application form in, you may get an email or a letter inviting you for an interview. If you've not been successful, the company will let you know that at this time they've not been able to interview you. So you should be kept up to date throughout the process all the way through.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So I think that's it for the questions. Thank you all of you for attending and for participating. So both this morning's presentations will be repeated in the afternoon. Feel free to come along to those as well. And we've got other sessions going right throughout the week. If you need to sign up to any of those still, please go to the CSW Group website. And if you have a question that you weren't able to answer today, or you wanted to send it privately, you're welcome to send that to careerquestion@cswgroup.co.uk. So thank you very much for attending. Thanks to Karen, and we look forward to seeing you at our next session.
Thank you.